The vast expanse of space stretched out like an endless canvas of midnight blue, punctuated by distant starlight. The celestial horizon cut through the darkness, its sleek hull reflecting the soft glow of distant solar systems. Captain J1. Park stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the holographic displays that flickered with information about an approaching alien vessel. The ship's sensors hummed with anticipation. Years of space exploration had prepared humanity for this moment, but nothing could truly prepare them for a first contact scenario. J1's crew moved with practiced precision, their movements calm and calculated. "Incoming transmission," announced Lieutenant Eunji Choi, her fingers dancing across the communication console. Her voice was steady, but a subtle tension ran beneath her words. The alien vessel was unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Its design defied conventional understanding, organic curves that seemed to breathe and pulse with an inner light, technological yet somehow alive. Where human ships were angular and purposeful, this craft looked like a living organism suspended in the void of space. Jae-won stepped forward, his reflection visible in the transparent command screen. Military training had taught him to show no fear, to project calm in the face of the unknown. His dark eyes studied the approaching vessel, calculating every possible scenario. "Translate protocols engaged," Sung-Ho Lee called from the science station. The linguist-turned-communication specialist had spent years preparing for this exact moment. His hands moved quickly, setting up complex translation matrices that would attempt to bridge the massive communication gap between human and alien languages. The first communication crackled through the ship's speakers. It was nothing like human speech, a complex blend of harmonics that seemed to vibrate at multiple frequencies simultaneously. To human ears, it sounded like a mix between music and mathematical equations, beautiful yet completely incomprehensible. J1 took a deep breath. First contacts were delicate. One wrong move could spark an intergalactic incident or worse, trigger a conflict that humanity was not prepared to fight. He had studied countless scenarios, war strategies, diplomatic protocols, but nothing in his training could have prepared him for the actual moment. "Open primary communication channel," he commanded. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew the weight of this moment. Humanity's first true dialogue with an alien civilization would be defined by these next few minutes. The alien vessel seemed to pulse, its external surfaces shifting like liquid metal. It was close now, close enough that individual details became visible. Intricate patterns moved across its surface, suggesting a level of technological sophistication far beyond human understanding. Lieutenant Yoon-ji's translation matrix began processing the incoming signals. Complex algorithms worked to find patterns, to create meaning from what seemed like pure chaos. Her screen filled with rapidly changing symbols, mathematical representations of an alien language that defied conventional linguistic structures. "Captain," she said, her voice a mixture of excitement and uncertainty, "we're receiving something. It's not like any communication protocol we've ever seen." Jae-won stepped closer to her station, his reflection overlaying the complex data. Streams. The alien signal was more than just language. It was a multidimensional communication that seemed to carry emotional and contextual information beyond mere words. Outside the ship, stars continued their silent dance. Billions of years of cosmic history watched this moment of potential connection, this fragile bridge between two civilizations that had never before encountered each other. The universe held its breath. The communication room was a sterile environment, of white walls and soft blue lighting. Hyerim Kim sat across from Captain Jae-won Park, her alien features both familiar and utterly strange. Her skin had a subtle iridescent quality, shifting between silver and pale blue depending on how the light touched her. Translation devices hummed between them, complex machines struggling to bridge the massive gap between human and alien communication. Linguistic algorithms churned, attempting to decode not just words but the intricate cultural context behind each sound and gesture. Jae-won pulled out a small historical document, an old text about medieval knights. His fingers traced the aged paper, knowing this simple piece of human history might be the key to something much larger. In our culture, he began, we have a concept that doesn't translate easily. A knight is more than a warrior, more than a soldier. Hiram's eyes, large and slightly reflective, studied him with an intensity that suggested multiple layers of comprehension. Her species processed information differently. Where humans saw linear narratives, her people perceived complex webs of interconnected meaning. The translation device flickered. Incomplete symbols appeared and disappeared, revealing the immense challenge of cross-species communication. Each word J1 spoke created a cascade of computational challenges. He spoke about Sir Galahad, about medieval codes of honor, about protecting the weak, about sacrifice that went beyond personal survival. The alien translation matrix struggled, producing nonsensical outputs that made little sense. Protection is not strategic, the device translated at one point. It is emotional mathematics. Hiram leaned forward. Her movement was liquid, almost impossible for human muscles to replicate. Explain the emotional mathematics of protection, she requested. J1 realized he was doing more than explaining a historical concept. He was attempting to communicate a fundamental aspect of human nature, the willingness to risk everything, for an abstract principle of honor. He described knights who would defend villages without payment, warriors who would sacrifice themselves to protect strangers, soldiers who would walk into certain death to save others. The translation device began to overheat. Computational systems designed for pure logical exchange couldn't process the complex, emotional nuances, honor, sacrifice, protection. These were not just words to humans. They were living concepts that defied simple mathematical representation. Hiram's species understood survival. They understood strategic cooperation. But the idea of voluntarily risking one's life for strangers, for an abstract moral principle, was completely alien to them. Your species calculates risk differently, she observed. J1 smiled. We don't always calculate. Sometimes we feel. Outside the communication room, advanced alien technology processed their conversation. Millions of computational units tried to understand this strange human concept. But no algorithm could fully capture the essence of a knight's code. The knight represented something profound, a human ability to transform personal capability into a moral framework. Not just a fighter, but a protector. Not just a soldier, but a guardian of principles. Hiram's research team would spend years trying to understand this simple concept. Thousands of alien scholars would analyze this single conversation, attempting to decode the complex human emotional landscape that allowed such extraordinary behavior. One small conversation, one historical concept, an entire alien civilization struggling to understand. The translation device made one final attempt to process J1's explanation. Its output was beautiful in its incomprehension. Protective strategy, emotional override of survival protocol. J1 laughed. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. The conversation continued, a delicate dance between two species trying to understand each other. One small step towards mutual comprehension, one giant leap beyond pure technological exchange. The universe watched, waiting to see what would happen next. The first warning came as a distant rumble. Space, usually silent, suddenly erupted with violent energy. Alien attack ships, sharp predatory constructs of metallic darkness, emerged from quantum fold points, their weapon systems charging with murderous intent. Captain J1's hands moved across the command console with lightning speed. The Celestial Horizon's defensive systems hummed to life, but this wasn't about survival. This was about protection. Multiple civilian colony ships in direct threat, Sung-Ho Lee announced, his voice calm despite the chaos. Digital displays showed hundreds of thousands of non-combatant lives about to become targets. The alien attack fleet moved with mechanical precision. Their strategy was clear, complete elimination of the civilian population. J1 knew their ship's defensive capabilities. Engaging would mean certain destruction. The logical choice was clear, retreat and report the incident, save their own crew. But knights don't make logical choices. Positioning the celestial horizon as a direct shield, he commanded. The bridge crew didn't question. They understood. Lieutenant Yunji's fingers danced across communication systems. Civilian ships, prepare emergency quantum jump. We'll create a defensive corridor. The first weapon blast struck the celestial horizon's shields. The entire ship shuddered. Structural integrity warnings screamed across every display. Computational systems calculated their survival probability. 2.3%. Jaewon didn't flinch. Each impact was absorbed deliberately. The ship became a living shield, taking damage that would have obliterated the defenseless colony vessels. Metal buckled. Energy systems overloaded. But they held. High Rim, watching from her observation deck, could not comprehend the human strategy. No rational species would sacrifice themselves so completely. No logical system would choose certain destruction to save strangers they are protecting, she whispered. Something profound shifting in her understanding. The battle lasted 17 minutes. 17 minutes of continuous bombardment. 17 minutes where human determination stood against cold, calculated destruction. When the civilian ships completed their emergency quantum jump, the celestial horizon was barely recognizable. Massive hull breaches, critical systems failing. Yet they had succeeded. Sung-ho's final calculation showed their survival chance had dropped to 0.01%. They knew this when they made their choice. Rescue teams would later describe the scene as impossible. How a single ship could absorb such massive damage, how a crew could remain so calm in the face of certain death. But for the humans, it wasn't a calculation. It was a promise. Protect the weak. Risk everything. No questions asked. As emergency systems began shutting down, Jaewon looked at his crew. No words were needed. They had done what needed to be done. The universe had just witnessed something it had never seen before. Not a military victory, not a strategic triumph, but a demonstration of something far more powerful. The human concept of honor. The alien observation teams would spend decades analyzing this single moment, trying to understand how a species could make such a choice, how vulnerability could become the most powerful weapon. Somewhere, in the vast darkness between stars, hundreds of thousands of civilians lived because a few humans chose protection over survival. A knight's promise kept. The research facility floated in deep space, a massive crystalline structure designed for pure analysis. Alien scientists from 100 different planetary systems gathered, their sensors and computational systems focused on one primary subject: understanding human behavior. Shi-Rim Kim stood at the central holographic display, reviewing countless data streams from the recent encounter. The human ship's actions defied every known strategic model. No rational species sacrificed itself so completely for unknown entities. Dr. Kalar, a senior xenoanthropologist with silvery skin and multiple sensory appendages, reviewed the visual records. They calculated their survival at less than 1%, he said, his voice a complex harmonic blend of sounds. And they still chose protection. The hologram replayed the celestial horizon's final moments. Each impact, each deliberate choice to absorb destruction. The alien researchers watched with a mixture of confusion and growing fascination. Sung-Ho Lee had been brought to the facility as a living reference point. Unlike the military personnel, he represented the intellectual core of human understanding. His calm demeanor seemed to intrigue the alien researchers more than any technical data. Why? Dr. Kalar asked repeatedly. Why risk everything? Sung-Ho's explanation was deceptively simple. Because it was the right thing to do. The translation. Systems struggled. Right thing was not a computational concept. It wasn't strategic. It wasn't logical. It was something else entirely. An emotional mathematical equation that defied all known scientific models. The research teams began dissecting human historical records. They discovered a pattern that both shocked and confused them. Humans had a long history of sacrificing individual survival for collective protection. Knights who defended villages, soldiers who threw themselves on grenades, firefighters who ran into burning buildings, pilots who stayed with damaged aircraft to save passengers. This wasn't an occasional occurrence, it was a consistent cultural pattern. They have transformed vulnerability into a form of strength, one researcher noted, her multiple eyes blinking in rapid succession. HFY understood something profound was happening. This wasn't just about one species studying another. This was a fundamental challenge to their understanding of survival and cooperation. The human concept went beyond survival. It suggested that protection itself was a form of power. That emotional commitment could be more powerful than pure strategic calculation. Sung Ho shared stories, not just of military heroism, but of everyday human choices. Teachers protecting students, strangers helping during disasters, medical workers risking infection to save patients. Each story added another layer to the complex human puzzle. The research facility became a hub of intense discussion. Computational systems worked overtime, trying to create models that could explain this unique human characteristic. They do not see protection as a weakness, Dr. Keller concluded after weeks of analysis. They see it as the highest form of strength. Holographic displays filled with complex diagrams attempting to map human emotional and ethical frameworks. But no mathematical model could fully capture the essence of human noble behavior. Something fundamental had changed in the galactic understanding of intelligence and survival. HFY looked at Sung Ho, realizing they were witnessing the beginning of a profound cultural transformation. Humanity was not just another species to be studied. They were something entirely different, a species that had transformed emotion into a strategic advantage, a civilization where protection was not a calculation, but a promise. The universe watched and waited, sensing that everything was about to change. The grand hall of the Galactic Confederation stretched like a cathedral of starlight. Massive crystalline columns reached toward an artificial sky that mimicked distant galaxies. Representatives from thousands of alien civilizations gathered, their forms as diverse as the universe itself. Captain Jaewon Park stood at the center, wearing a simple uniform that seemed almost plain compared to the elaborate ceremonial attire of other species. Around him, the room buzzed with an energy of anticipation. HFY Kim approached the central platform. Her movements were deliberate, carrying the weight of months of research and cultural analysis. The humans had changed everything they thought they knew about intelligent life. "We recognize," she began, her voice resonating through advanced translation, "systems, that humanity represents a fundamental shift in our understanding of collective intelligence." The ceremony was unprecedented. No species had ever been honored in this way before. The Galactic Confederation was essentially rewriting its own protocols of interaction and understanding. Jaewon remained calm. He understood this was larger than a personal moment. This was about something more profound, a recognition of a unique human approach to existence. Senior diplomats from multiple star systems presented symbolic artifacts. Each represented a different aspect of protection and sacrifice they had learned from human historical records. A medical instrument from a healing tradition, a piece of protective armor, a simple teaching tool. Sung Ho Lee watched from the side, his analytical mind processing the cultural significance of each moment. Decades of human history were being condensed into this single ceremonial event. "Your species demonstrates," another diplomat announced, "a form of intelligence that transcends pure survival strategy. You transform vulnerability into strength." The room fell silent. Each alien representative was processing this radical concept. Protection was no longer just a defensive mechanism. It was a form of advanced intelligence. Holographic displays showed moments of human heroism. Firefighters rescuing children, medical workers fighting epidemics, soldiers protecting civilian populations. Each image told a story of choice beyond pure self-preservation. Jaewon understood the deeper meaning. This wasn't just a diplomatic recognition. This was an invitation. an acknowledgement that humanity offered something unique to the galactic community. "We accept you," the lead Confederation representative stated. "Not as a military power, not as a technological civilization, but as guardians." The word carried special weight. In the vast, complex language of the galactic community, guardian was the highest possible designation. HFY presented a unique artifact, a holographic representation of a medieval knight's code of honor, translated into the complex mathematical language of the Confederation. It was a bridge between human emotion and galactic understanding. The ceremony lasted hours, but it felt like a moment. Something fundamental had changed in the universe's understanding of intelligence. Protection was no longer seen as a weakness. Emotion was no longer considered inferior to pure logic. Humanity had transformed the fundamental rules of galactic interaction. As the ceremony concluded, Jaewon looked at his crew. They had done something extraordinary, not through superior technology, not through military might, but through a simple, powerful concept, the promise to protect. The universe watched, sensing a profound transformation.